Perfect. So as Pete mentioned, this will be going around consistency and really giving you some basically understanding how consistency shows up for you in real life, and then giving you some tools to take and takeaways for the rest of the session. Oh, there we go. Firstly, I just wanted to start with a little bit of context about who I am and how I got into doing what I'm doing now. So I've always been in a corporate role ever since I was in London. I moved to Saudi around nearly 5 years ago now. And as Pete mentioned, worked with him for the first couple of years when I was first moved over. I had the life that looked very successful from the outside, in the corporate role, but I just really felt that I was misaligned. I was exhausted. I was getting burnt out. And I just had a feeling that I was living out someone else's version of success. It wasn't necessarily my version of success. So when I first moved to Saudi, I was very lucky to have the mentor that I worked under for a little while. And they advised me to hire a coach, which I had never thought about before. So when I hired my first coach 5 years ago now, it completely changed the trajectory of my life. And I think for the first time, I had someone who almost held up a mirror and really helped me challenge the way I thought, the stories that I'd always told myself, and ultimately what I believed I was possible of achieving in my life. So it wasn't about fixing me, it was very much about rewiring and just working on my mindset. And when I started working with my coach, I almost would say became slightly obsessed with self development. Um, I listened to all the podcasts, read all the books, and really delved deeper into how I could work and train my mindset to reach my fullest potential. And that was what I've been doing for like the last 5 years, I would say. A big part of my story, I would also came through fitness. So fitness taught me a lot, and it became a vehicle to training my mindset as well. So I started to look at elite athletes, what makes someone have, I suppose, what you would call a champion mindset. I'm really just thinking that can be used to someone in everyday life. So the principles of having resilience, having a growth mindset, having focus, having self-belief, and a clear sense of what your purpose is and your vision of where you're going. And how could I take those principles with coaching and then help people in everyday life? So this is ultimately what led me to go down the mindset coaching course. I became ICF qualified at the end of last year. And the difference that I've seen in myself through the coach that I've had, I ultimately want to be able to give that to other people, to be able to help other people train their mindset to really unlock new levels of themselves for them to be able to reach their fullest potential. So yeah, that's a bit about who I am and why I got into coaching.
And so, yes, as
Pete, did you?
always, yes, as always, we ask all of you people in the room to share something relevant, obviously, to the topic that we have at hand. And so I asked you before, or as you were signing up to the call, what is one thing that interrupts your consistency time and time again? And Emma, if you go to the next slide, there was all sorts of responses, and probably none of them really are the sort of big surprises, right? Routine disruption is a big one. And so, that is why we work with you a lot on, vacations, high stress times, travel back and forth, maybe to Riyadh or wherever it might be. Equally, the madness of life or the professional life, urgent work deliverables, having to stay late, or maybe sort of managing kids and the family and so on. And I think a lot of it is really setting the expectations so high and not really allowing those to change. And then if they do, or if you can't hit those, you see yourself as a bit of a failure, right? That you haven't hit your targets. And this is why, myself and Marvin, we talk so much about, in different or having different phases of life and the importance of knowing when to push and go, go, go when things are, settled, in routine, comfortable, and also knowing when to pull back and doing, more maintenance style targets and activities that is, yes, going to maintain your progress in those highly stressful, busy times. But it means that after those die down, you can get back to, going 100% again. We can't live everything on 110% effort. So it's really important to, know what consistency looks like, not just in the week, but over a month, 2 months, six, a year, etc. Because that is the thing. Consistency is going to be the biggest driver to you obviously achieving success. So we won't dwell on these too much, but thank you everyone for sharing them. I think it lines up quite nicely to what Emma is going to share now.
Thank you. So, your mindset is trained through repeated experience. It's not trained through motivation. We all know that motivation can be extremely unreliable. And mindset is how the brain manages energy and decisions. So, as your mental energy drops, the brain will automatically default to what's easier and the patterns that are familiar that you always do. Now, this isn't because you don't care, but it's just because of how it is designed. So, by doing your mindset work, you're reducing the decision load. So, following through becomes a lot easier. And with consistency, this can really be affected by the mental load that you go throughout the day. So, the next couple of slides is about understanding what that looks like. As Pete mentioned at the beginning, being consistent is, I would say, one of the big hacks of life. And being consistent is what allows you to grow your capacity. So when you can show up on the days where the environment isn't perfect, that's where you can get the edge. Everyone can do it consistently when you feel good or when you have all the time in the world and when you have the right energy. But the real growth happens when you find a way to show up when the circumstances aren't going your way. So it's showing up even when it feels hard. And those are the wins that really, really build your strength. So, one of the main topics and a big effect on your consistency is decision fatigue. So, what I mean by this, we're just going to go through almost what a typical day could look like if you have a busy day at work. So, if you think about a normal day, you might be rushing in the morning, you've got decisions that you're making all day at work. You get to the afternoon, you might have that mid-afternoon crash. And when you get to the evening, this is where you've made so many decisions throughout the day, you might start to make the bad ones. So, for example, you might skip that training session because you're tired. You might make bad food choices for dinner. And then you get the evening guilt, and you might just say, you know what, I'm going to start again tomorrow, or I'm going to start again at a new week. Because by the end of the day, you've made 200 plus decisions. Just through doing this, your mental energy is going to drop right down throughout the day. So automatically, you're going to go to the easiest option, which is not always the best one for you and for your future self, let's say. But it is important to take away that this isn't always a discipline problem. This is just from too many decisions and decision fatigue. And it is something that you can fix. There is something of a solution. So this can be eliminate, automate, and simplify. So what I mean by automate, for example, if you have a corporate role, pick your clothes the night before, or you can create a capsule wardrobe. So I don't know if you know of Stephen Bartlett, who hosts the Diary of the CEO. So, for example, him and Steve Jobs, they wear the same thing every single day. So it's not because they don't care, but they know that every tiny decision they make costs them energy. So by removing the decision of what to wear, they're saving that energy for the bigger decisions that they might need to make throughout the day. So you can do this as well with your meal planning. So you can plan your meals weekly, you can do batch cooking so that you're not having to make those decisions daily. So basically, you're reclaiming your mental energy. So you're keeping that energy for the decisions that actually matter. So the start stop loop, most people will think about consistency as never missing. So it's being on it every single day. And I think we've almost been sold this idea in the world that we live in now. Um, but the reality is that real life doesn't look like that. And things will get in the way. There will be disruptions. What real consistency is what you do after you miss. So, what you do after you fall off track. What is your ability to be able to restart? So, what I would invite you to do after this evening, after the call, or maybe later in the week, is reflect on these three questions. So, what triggers you to stop? What time of day is the hardest for you? And when you do stop or fall off track, let's say, what emotion shows up for you most often when this happens? So these questions are really important because once you're able to answer these, you will start seeing patterns in your behavior. Now, when you can see patterns in your behavior, it allows you to build the systems around them and the habits that will be sustainable for you to put in place. So then it becomes very tailored to you and it's a lot easier for you to keep showing up. So I want to run through a little example to make it easier to understand as well. So for an example, if you wanted to start working out in the mornings, you've told yourself, I'm going to train every morning at 7 a.m. So you start off enthusiastic, let's say Sunday through to Wednesday, you're at the gym, 7 a.m., everything is going to plan. By Wednesday, you're near the end of the week, work has been exhausting. Wednesday night, you've had to work a bit later, you end up scrolling on your phone. This then affects your sleep. Thursday, the alarm goes off, you snooze, you don't have any time to work out, you leave the workout and you just say, you know what, I've fallen off track, I'm just going to start again the following week. So you've then stopped. What you need to do is just learn what that trigger has been. So in this instance, the trigger was the load of work, but then you've got to Wednesday night, you've worked a little bit later, you're exhausted, you've been doom scrolling on your phone, you've got the emotion potentially of overwhelm, the emotion of feeling stressed. Now, what you need to do is when that trigger happens, notice it and put in a restart. So set in almost a new system for yourself. So let's say on Thursday morning, or sorry, on Wednesday evening, you tell yourself at 9:30 p.m. you're no longer able to go on your phone. So you cut out the doom scrolling. You place your gym clothes at the end of the bed. So you're already prepared for the next morning. You don't need to think about it. Instead of doing a full session on Thursday morning, you tell yourself, I'm going to do 20 minutes, half an hour, because I know I'm going to be tired from the week of work and just the week in general. But I still want to move, but I don't want to put that full pressure on where ultimately it might mean that I don't do it. So you're lowering the bar slightly, but you've set yourself up in an environment that you can succeed in. So you're still getting the job done. Yes, it might not be the full 100%, but you're not falling off track. So this is where when you keep running this loop, your habits will start to get stronger. So always ask yourself, where do I usually stop or fall off track? And what is my behavioral pattern for doing this? And then once you can start the skill of restarting, then this is where long-term consistency really starts to kick in. Another topic that I'd like to talk through as well is about reframing. So, this is almost about shifting your perspective a little bit. If we look at athletes, athletes don't rely on motivation because ultimately motivation is unreliable. I mean, I know from my own experience, I would say 70% of the time that I train, there is zero motivation. It has just become so habitual in my routine that that's what I do. So, what elite athletes will do is they will rely on structure within their habits and within their daily routine. So, for example, they will have their clothes laid out the day before. They'll have their food ready. They'll have planned sessions. They'll follow a program. They'll eat the same things most days. They'll have a fixed bedtime. They'll have the same training times most days. So they've stripped out any decisions that they need to make and they just have a system that they follow. So when it's a low motivation day, they don't need inspiration. They just follow the plan that they've already put in place.
And it's funny, just on this, Emma, when we had our
It's
chat yesterday, sorry, just quickly, we were sat with Alistair, right? And
yeah.
basically he pulled out this notebook, right? It's a friend of ours. He pulled out this notebook and he had this habit tracker, right? It was written down every habit, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, etc. The dates, you know, the first, second, third, etc. And it would be a tick or cross if he had done that habit. And for him, right, workout was on there. And I was like, you know, he was sort of playing with the idea of, why don't you do this? It'd be good to track your habits. It would be good to keep you sort of accountable. And for me, like working out, and obviously this isn't necessarily true of everyone in here, but working out is like a non-negotiable for me. Like it's not
Mm.
it's not a case of I need a reminder to do it because it's been a part of my life for 18 years, right? So it's in my brain, it is happening no matter what. But when it comes to other things like learning my Arabic vocabulary, things like that, posting more on Instagram, posting stories, posting this kind of stuff, I need something to then keep me accountable, to track the habits, to see if I can sort of be consistent with them and then get the payoff of that afterwards. So everyone here will have things that they are confident in, they're going to do, no matter what. But there's going to be things that they need that prompt, they need that reminder to do them. And just again, on one of the other things you said, Emma, is in relation to sort of knowing that you have this fixed structure and routine, right? When
Mm.
it comes to the last, what has it been, 12 weeks, right? As I prepare for the sort of Riyadh half marathon, right? Running doesn't come naturally to me. I hate it. It's not fun, but there's a kind of buzz afterwards. With that, I know that, okay, the two times I have to run in the week are Tuesday and Friday. You're also limited by time because you can literally just run in the morning or the evening, unless you want to, commit suicide here in Jeddah and run outside during the heat. So you are then limited by, okay, I need to get up at like 5:30, 6 in the morning in order to run. So then what do I need to do on the back end of that the night before? I need to make sure that I sleep at this time. If not, like I'm still going to do it, but I'm going to feel absolutely terrible. It's going to be horrible. And no, like you do that once, you don't want to do it again. And so again, what I'm saying with that is you go through phases in life, right? And this isn't going to be a forever thing. I don't think I could hold the Tuesday, Friday running plus everything else for the next month. Good thing the marathon's in 2 weeks. So I have committed to this amount of time. I'm going to focus on this thing. There's going to be other priorities that fall by the wayside potentially, but this is my goal for that time. And so whether you are in a fat loss phase, whether you are in, a muscle gaining phase, it is for a particular amount of time, right? We don't want you living in fat loss. It's not fun. It's miserable. But we want to make sure that you execute, you do things, you behave consistently to then reach the goal so that you're then on to the next thing. So thank you for that. Emma, back to you.
um, yes, so when we're also talking about consistency, it isn't merely a personality trait, and this is how people can talk about it. So people could, for example, say, "Oh, she's just consistent, and that's just not me." And That's not true. Consistency can be designed. By creating smart routines and keeping yourself accountable, you make it easier to stick to your actions day after day. So it's all about making it easy to become the person that you want to become. And that usually involves kind of leveling up to another level. But structure by itself isn't just what you need. We do need to have a framework to put certain habits in place that you might not have before, but also to make those habits become a little more automatic and to help them stick. So then this really builds out the routine that you want. So the shift that we're trying to make here is going from I need more willpower, I need more motivation each day, and shifting towards I need better systems in place to help me. So when that system is right, the consistency will just become a lot more natural and it won't feel as much of like a daily battle that you're trying to go through day in day out to hit the targets that you want to hit. But saying that is not always going to be easy, but this will make it easier for you. So I just want to break down a little bit of a framework on habits for you, because this will be some good takeaways that you can immediately start putting into action this week. But I don't know if anyone has read James Clear's book. If you haven't, I highly recommend that you buy it. It changed my life and it's a very good book. He's also done quite a few podcasts recently as well. For example, I think he was on the Diary of the CEO recently, but he's definitely one worth having a look at. He will just go through the importance of habits and how to set them. Now, being 1% better each day, if you're doing this for 365 days a year, that is a huge change that you will see over time. So it really does mean like the small, consistent actions compound into big results. You might not see it after day one, a week, 2 weeks potentially, but when you keep going, that's when you start to see it. So it's better to keep that consistency rather than having, say, 1 week out of a month where you're going 100% into everything, but then you fall off for 3 weeks. It's better if you only have 40% that one day, give that 40% because you're still giving 100% of what you have to give. And we're going to go through a little example of this as well, just to show what I would mean by that. Because what I would always say is don't start big, start tiny. Even if it feels almost insignificant how small you are starting, if you consistently do that, you can grow the intensity. And what I mean about this, for example, say if you haven't trained for 6 months, your rule might be when I get home from work, I want to walk for 5 minutes every evening. So after a week or two, you can move the 5 minutes up to 10 minutes, up to 15 minutes. So what once was after work movement is now a locked in habit. And then what you can start to do is increase that intensity. So 2 days a week, the walks become a short workout instead. So then what you're doing is you're naturally over time improving the intensity and your identity starts to shift. So it goes from I'm trying to exercise after work, and then it becomes I'm someone who moves after work. And then in a year, this could be 3 to 4 training sessions a week, and that just feels habitual to you. Not because you suddenly became disciplined, but it's because you made the habit and you moved that habit to be a default of yours. So, going along with the identity that we were just speaking about, habits aren't just what you do, they reflect who you are. And I've put a question up here on the screen, and I would very much recommend that you take a moment this week, 30 minutes to yourself, and you journal on this question because this is a very important question in general for your mindset and where you want to go. And the question is, who do I want to become? So, when we usually talk about habits, most people will automatically think about your actions. So, a habit could be going to the gym, eating better, reading more. But underneath this lies your identity. For example, if you run 3 times a week, over time, you stop being someone who is trying to run and you start being a runner. So once that identity lands with you and you call yourself a runner, the decision gets easier because a runner doesn't usually debate whether they go for a run every day because it's just who they are. So, I want to run would be your goal. I'm a runner is your identity. So, even if you're just starting out, making that shift in your brain is going to make it a lot easier for you to be able to go out and run, as an example. So, when you change your habits, you quietly change your identity. And when your identity changes, that's when your life will follow. So you'll start to see the changes within your life on a bigger scale. So when we're thinking about habit, we're going through the 4 laws of behavior change. So to make a habit stick, firstly, you want to make it obvious. Second, you want to make it attractive. Third, you need to make it easy. And fourth, you need to make it satisfying. So now on the next slide, we're going to go through an example of how you could do this and each step. So for example, if you wanted the habit of reading every evening, say you want to start reading 5 to 10 pages. So make it obvious. Attach it to something you already do. So if you want to do it in the evening, after you brush your teeth, you get into bed, you read. You've already placed your book on your pillow. So it's obvious. After you brush your teeth, you get into bed, the book is there. You can't avoid it. Make it attractive. So read things that you actually enjoy reading at the beginning so that it's attractive to you, you enjoy doing it. Or you can pair it up with something else that you enjoy. So like having a cup of tea and biscuits or just being comfortable, anything like that. Make it easy to start with. So as I said before, start small. Commit to only 5 to 10 minutes or just 5 pages. You don't have to start reading an hour every evening. Make it satisfying. So for me, and as Pete actually said earlier, a simple habit tracker could be a way to do it so that you're visually seeing yourself tick off day after day how many times you're getting it done. And then you're creating that system support. So if it's in your nighttime routine, put your phone away, your book is ready, and make sure it's the same cue every evening. So when you're doing it like this, you're not going to be relying on willpower. You've built a system in place. So after a couple of weeks, you're not going to argue with yourself about reading. It's just going to become a part of your evening routine. Now, we talk a lot about addition and adding things that we need to be doing, but also I think it's really good to reflect on actually what is a negative habit that could be stopping us into becoming the person we want. So this is just in reverse. So if you want to remove a negative habit, for example, doom scrolling in the evening on your phone, make it invincible. Take the phone out of the bedroom. No screens after 8 or 9 p.m. Make it to yourself as well. And for this, I would say maybe write it down, the effects it has when you scroll before you go to sleep. So I know, for example, I struggle to fall asleep. I'll have poor sleep, low energy levels the next day. This again will have a knock-on effect to me making poor decisions the next day. Make it difficult. So add a lot of friction. So put your phone in a different room before you go to bed. Lock all your apps. Put it on airplane mode. So make it difficult for you to actually go on Instagram, be on your phone, etc. And make it unsatisfying. So like I said before, like keep yourself accountable with it. have a next day review of how it made you feel when you did go on your phone late at night. And then again, supporting this system. So the more you can create that system and put it all together, you're going to starve that habit. And once the cue is gone, it's only going to be a negative. It's not going to be something that you want to go back to. A practical tip you can take in this week is just start small, but just start. There is no time to feel ready. So pick one micro habit that you would like to embed into your week and attach it to an existing routine. So, as an example, read 5 to 10 pages when you get into bed or when you wake up first thing in the morning if you're a morning person. I would also say track your progress and really allow yourself to celebrate even the smallest wins. If you hit 7 days in a row, that's a win. Allow yourself to have that celebration because it is that little reward that you give yourself that's going to help keep you going. So always remember the small steps. That's what builds the consistency, and that's where the momentum grows. Another tool for this week is a bit more of a mental shift. So it's to choose an anchor thought that will guide you. So for an example would be, my job isn't to be perfect. My job is to show up even when it feels hard. So this almost lowers the bar slightly from being perfect to just being present. So on a tough day, it might mean a 10-minute walk instead of the full workout. It might mean 5 minutes of focus work instead of telling yourself you have to clear your whole to-do list. But use this thought to drive small, manageable actions every day. So those small, consistent steps are what build real, lasting change in your routine because you're still showing up that day. And as we're going through this, just start to have a think of what your anchor thought might be. It could be something like, I'm the kind of person who comes back even after a little wobble of today. But the line really needs to like resonate with you for it to work throughout the week when you're using it. So along this line, it could be, as I mentioned, so if you're only have 60% energy to give, you still go to the gym and you give that 60%. Not every day is going to feel great and not every day is going to go all out effort. When you're reading, commit to 5 pages instead of a whole chapter. And as I mentioned, having that reflection and acknowledging how you've shown up that day and the tasks that you have got done. So a big takeaway is you don't need to become someone new. This work is about returning to the version of you that does know how to follow through. We've all done hard things. We've all shown up when it has been hard. So it is just about making it a lot easier for yourself. Put those systems in place, reduce the number of decisions that you have to make, especially the small decisions each day. Build on your simple habits, and this will really shape a mindset that supports you and not fights you. But another thing with consistency, it is doing what needs to be done, unfortunately, even when it is hard. But putting those systems in place will just make it a lot easier for you to keep showing up. So just a final one. It's pick that anchor thought for the week. Those micro habits, start small, make it obvious, track your process, find accountability as well, whether that's a coach or a partner, and reflect and really celebrate those wins to reinforce the behavior. You don't need motivation every day. It's the habits and systems you need that will do the heavy lifting for you. So this isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up consistently, even when it's hard.
For sure. And I think, that is one of Marvin's favorite sayings, which is, we're looking for progress and not perfection, right? I think everyone
Yes.
on this call is striving for change, striving to, become a better version of themselves, whatever that might look like to them. And so, the daily 1% improvements, the sort of the long-term approach to this, I think is super powerful as well. Because when one of the things that we really try and do, sort of myself and Marvin, with each and every one of you, is really look at managing the expectations, right? And we shared one of these lessons within the 2025 transformation lessons, sort of at the beginning or sort of at the end of last year, going into how like expectations can really be like a destroyer to your progress, right? And so a lot of the
Mm,
time people don't account for everything else that is happening on in their life, right? They may have just had their third son, or they may have just hit peak, what was it? Who was telling me? Sort of peak sort of Ramadan preparation as they work in the confectionery business. And so hours are crazy. Like all of these things that change as the year goes on, unexpected or expected, ultimately is going to be a test on your consistency. So just as Emma has said here, like systems can be an incredible way to help manage the stress, the sort of decision fatigue that I think is really something that is kind of underappreciated in how it really sort of tackles willpower and discipline and so on. So I think, yeah, Emma, thank you so much for sharing all of that. I think it's probably given everyone a really good insight into areas that they can consider, think about, and just ensure that no matter what, there is an element of showing up, and that's going to be different for everyone, at different points in the year. Marvin, I'm
yeah.
interested. Does anything sort of really speak to you?
Yeah, I think just the very useful prompts and questions that Emma asked, I think will be really good to kind of ponder on over the next day or, week or so, where you actually just spend some time thinking on this and pondering on it. Because I think it's all well and good, sort of absorbing the information, taking it all in. But if you do nothing with it, then, you really haven't benefited from it. So definitely take up those questions that she asked. And obviously we'll be sharing these with you guys in your groups and in the forum as well, just to keep you guys thinking about these really good questions she asked.
Yeah, I think sort of one that sort of helped me, which I actually shared similar in the sort of journal prompts at the end of last year, was around like what is the kind of one word for this week, right? And same here, it's like an anchor thought, right? It's what is the thing that I'm going to be coming back to, whether it's you know I'm appreciating how far I've come in my journey already. These sorts of things that you can really kind of repeat, you can embody, you can think about when times are getting stressful to bring you back to what is that thing, what is that thought you want to really sort of ingrain within you during the week and obviously beyond. So yeah, any other sort of questions or comments in the in the comments? I think people sort of thank you, Emma, lots of thank yous, which is great. And yes, I think sort of Abdullah, like you've sort of shared something there, and I find it myself in various things, right? When you prioritize something, that means other things can potentially start to slip. So,
Mm.
what would you say to that, Emma? Different priorities, all of which are important in some kind of way. How would you suggest people manage that?
And I think, as you were saying earlier as well, I think there will be stages in your life where there will be priorities that you need to have at a higher level. And we are only human. There's only so much that you can have on your plate. And I think it's really understanding within yourself and where you want to go and where you want to be, what you do need to prioritize for that moment. And it might be that for you, for example, at the moment, Pete, you're prioritizing the marathon training. So other areas of your training have to slightly not drop off completely, but they're not getting 100% of your attention. So I think it's still being soft with yourself at the same time when other priorities come in, still trying to stick to the other things that you have, but it might mean that you can't give them 100% at the same time because we don't have that bandwidth to be able to give everything 100% all at the same time. But it's understanding and knowing what you need to prioritize.
For sure. And just on that, kind of in relation to myself, right? I'm getting these two sort of running sessions in. each week. I'm trying to then get 4 to 5 strength training sessions in because I really don't want to lose any muscle mass. But, inevitably it's going to be happening as you start to get to
Mm,
those higher mileage as well. Obviously, there's the aerobic side of things. And so I know on a Tuesday and a Friday, there's no chance of studying or doing much because I'm like wiped out from the running. It's amazing how much it actually takes out of you. I think maybe it's the weather, my fitness level, maybe I'm just not born to be a runner either.
blame the
So
weather.
yeah, it's the weather, always the weather. So what I'm saying is I know that this is a short-term thing, right? As soon as I finish the race, I'm going to cut down on the running. I'm going to look at rebuilding muscle and strength and focusing on other areas. So it's appreciating that, priorities are always going to be there, but it's making sure you are aware of, okay, what is like a 10 out of 10 in terms of priority at this moment in
Mm,
time? And then kind of working down there because there's probably going to be one or two things that are coming more towards the sort of lower end. And generally, those are going to be things maybe like social occasions, obligations, maybe things like just wasted downtime, monging out in front of Netflix or your phone. What are those things that you're going to have to sacrifice in the short term to actually hit, what it is you want to achieve in this period in life? Nothing's forever. And I think as soon as you can be clear on what it is you're working towards at a particular time in, the year, then that just really eases a lot of the stress because it's not forever. There's going to be an end to it. And I just need to keep pushing for another week, month, 2 months, and then it kind of settles down. So again, long-term vision to all of this.
yeah, and I think that's a really key point, Pete. It is having your vision clearly defined and having those goals in place because the habits and the routine that you have need to be a reflection of that.